Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In life, how many times do you need to be lied to in order to really say that person is a liar? I mean, you personally, do you need 3 times, 1 time, 1,000 times? And what is the gravity of the lie? Again, someone can lie to you 1 time, but big time. And some people can lie you here and there, and then you say, okay, whatever. Well, it depends on each person's way of living their lives. In this case, we have here an article coming from Ukrainska Pravda, and they cite Ukrainian intelligence reports, and they're gonna make a claim. That's actually an assessment and make a report. That means, they found something put together, and then they will release it to the people to find out what they found. And they found that Russia prepares to announce its victory over Ukraine and NATO on this particular day. So they already know it. And the day is going to be very soon, in about 2 days. So if that will not materialize, will you ever trust the Ukrainian intelligence services, even if you have never trust them? The same as the American or the, the British intelligence services. Remember, they lied about Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction. So we're going to see what evidence these guys have to support their allegations, their report, which is the Russians will declare victory day over NATO and Ukraine in 2 days. The other one, will the Kremlin, will the Russians demand NATO or US pull back their troops from Eastern Europe? Remember, that's a big problem for the Russians, which is NATO. And you may say, well, it's the right of each country to decide independently, being sovereign independent, which they're not, I think. If they want to join an organization, a defensive organization, a group, like an individual, supposedly, in the world community. But there's a problem. There are some constraints, there are some rules, regulations. And, if someone comes too close to you with a gun in his hand, what are you going to do about it? Back off, don't come closer, pop, get your gun out, show it that you got the same thing, comes closer, and then you defend yourself. So that is what NATO did to the Russians. So let's start with the first topic, which is Russia's preparation to announce its victory over Ukraine and NATO on 24th of February, Ukrainian intelligence report. So this is according to Ukrainska Pravda. Now, when this will not happen, never trust these guys again. If you had any, you were a little bit more, how should I put it, inclined to be a nice person, as they say, and not a cruel guy like us. All right, what do you think? Will they declare it? First, I think this victory, quote unquote, over Ukraine and NATO, I think that could be a kind of accurate description of reality. Now, could it get worse? Could it get worse? But these guys tried to the limits that they are willing to not cross. They have limits, but they can expand the limits a little bit, which is nuclear war, NATO troops in Ukraine. They were not willing yet to do that because they would have the Russian reaction, which could be nuclear weapons. They didn't want to go on all war with Russia. Russia uses what? 600, 700,000 troops? Maybe 800, I give you 1 million. A general mobilization in Russia would be about 30 million, 30 million. So that's why and they have nuclear weapons, about 7,000 or so. So the fact that the Russians are not employing everything over there, these guys say, okay, that's the limit. So let's see what evidence the Ukrainian intelligence has, correct? Correct. If you're still those kind of people who like evidence after statements. The Russians are preparing to announce an alleged victory in the war against Ukraine and NATO on the 3-year anniversary of their full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th and are planning a large-scale propaganda disinformation campaign. The source is Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. And I'm quoting. This is their report. Russia is preparing to declare an alleged victory in the war against Ukraine by the specific date, 24th of February 2025, the third anniversary of the beginning of the full-scale war. Moreover, these plans may also include a Russian victory over NATO, end quote. The Russians have consistently claimed that they are fighting the alliance in Ukraine. You think? Ukrainian intelligence said that the Kremlin had instructed to intensify attempts to sow delusionment among Ukrainians, destabilize the situation in the country, and discredit Ukraine in the eyes of partners who provide important military assistance. Well, wouldn't that make the partners baboons if they're so dumb to fall for the Russians' garbage? Thank you for letting us know. So the partners are all safe right now. They were informed by this guy, by the Ukrainian intelligence. Statements such as the West betrayed Ukraine, neither Moscow nor Washington care about the options of Europeans and Ukrainians. The US and Russia made a deal behind Ukraine's back. The Ukrainian government is illegitimate. The Ukrainian army is losing on the battlefield. And corrupt Ukrainian officials are stealing billions of dollars of US aid will be the most widespread narratives in the near future. My question, are those narratives, as you call them, true or not? Right? So, the West betrayed Ukraine. Let's start with that one. Quickly. Well, you start the garbage in Ukraine in 2014. Oh, yeah, 2014. And then you arm the guys, and then you bring military infrastructure, arms and CIA over there, not only. And then Zelensky is promoted, elected on a peace platform. He comes and says that he doesn't like anything about the Minsk II agreements, which is international law, with the guarantors of implementation on the Ukraine side from the Germans and the French, who lied. All right, and now they are willing to do what exactly? To talk to the Russians a peace settlement that the Russians asked to discuss on 2021 and 2022, early 2022. Remember, they wanted security guarantees, and this guy said no. So they gave weapons, I think they were actively involved. So I think they betrayed Ukraine, because right now they're pulling out of this. All right, neither Moscow nor Washington care about the options of Europeans and Ukrainians. Correctly, the Russians said Europe will not be a participant. Ukraine could, but lost the train. For 3 years they could have done it. None of these guys did it. Ukraine will probably be informed. That's another accurate thing. Ukraine is a used whore by the Americans, by the Western interest, and that's it. Now it lost. Now, the US and Russian media made a deal behind Ukraine's back. Well, I covered that yesterday, and actually the Russians and the Americans met for months in Switzerland, the delegations, secretly. Go and watch that video. I posted yesterday. Actually, this morning. The Ukrainian government is illegitimate. Well, according to the Russians, how they interpret the constitution of Ukraine, and I can interpret it as well, and you can interpret it as well. We're not like in the old days, only the priest can interpret you the Bible. Those days are gone, all right? So when you do this, you find out that actually probably, I don't know, the martial law, who is instituted by this guy who doesn't want to organize elections, is kind of like illegitimate. Now, I don't know if so, but there's a truth in that. The Ukrainian army is losing on the battlefield, says here. Well, it is. The Russians have been advancing big time, not only in Donetsk, they're pushing back the Russian NATO success in Kursk, and not only. So I think they're kind of winning if you look at it. I mean, if I move towards this on the field, that means I'm winning, you're losing territory. And corrupt Ukrainian officials are stealing billions of dollars of US aid. You will find out after the war, you're going to find a lot of Ukrainians with a lot of money. And you're going to say how? All right, will be the most widespread. The Kremlin also ordered its intelligence services to use the US-Russia talks in Saudi Arabia on 18th of February for information attacks. Yeah, they're bragging about it. We fucked you up, basically. They will try to manipulate these events to influence public opinion, and you don't. Okay, so background. Kirilo Budanov, head of Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, has expressed his belief that a ceasefire on the front lines could be reached by the end of 2025. So remember, These guys say the Russians will go and have all that parade and with Victory Day. I think they could have done this a few days ago without the parade, all right? The parade will be when it's going to be a ceasefire. That's probably the parade. It's going to be a long-lasting peace in Ukraine. Ukraine will be part of, managed by Russia. The Americans will be given some resources from natural resources from Ukraine. Ukraine will never be independent again. I mean, it's going to be less independent than the baboons that are under occupation, like the Romanians. They're going to be less, but nevertheless will be independent. Next one. Let's see how the Russians may demand NATO to pull back its troops from Eastern Europe. And I'm going to start with this. Remember in 1991, or during the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Russia was created again as an independent Russian Federation and blah, blah, blah. The Western, they were called gentlemen and civilized world, that we live in, and we're told that we are exceptional. They met the Russians and in particular James Baker, who was then the Secretary of State of the United States of America, which is the foreign minister. Nobody denies anymore that James Baker told the Russians, if you agree, because the Russians could have not agreed and could not give, if they didn't want to give Eastern Germany to Western Germany, or you're free or whatever, all that Iron Curtain thing is just, But anyway, so if you agree the unification of Germany, then there's not going to be any NATO expansion eastward 1 inch. There was a promise that's written down, not signed, written down by people present. They don't deny it. The Americans don't deny it, but the Americans said, well, do you have it in writing? Okay, so then from a gentleman level, you drop to a thug level. So they said, agree with that, with the unification, and we're going to do this for you. Well, the unification occurred because the Russians allowed, they pulled the troops, they could have kept the troops over there, and then you have what? They have nuclear weapons then too, and then these guys did not fulfill their part of the deal. So who are the not gentlemen, uncivilized baboons? These guys, so in 1991, and then these guys expanded, and all these countries that had the right to join NATO, we're told, open door policy of NATO, joined in. But the Americans, which is the American organization, this is NATO, it's United States and the baboons, right, around them, around the United States. That's what it is. They could have said no because of those promises that they fulfilled their part of the deal. We are batches. So they accepted all these guys. I mean, remember, if you want to go to, ride a, amusement park, one of those blah, 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 you have to have a height. You have to be a certain height. If you are not that tall, and you're shorter, you can't ride all the rides. Why? That's a rule. You might fall out, something. The same. The Americans could have said, no Eastern Europe country could join NATO. Clear and nice. Bye-bye. Why? Because of that gentleman agreement. So now these guys say, Kremlin denies asking US to withdraw troops from Eastern Europe. But I'm not saying that they will not ask them, and they didn't ask. But how do you know that? Let's find out. Russia did not demand that the United States withdraw its troops from Eastern Europe during recent talks in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said on February 21, according to Radio Free Europe. It doesn't mean that they didn't ask. It doesn't mean that they will not ask in the future. They can always ask. As the Russians and as the Americans, they could bring other things on the table as the negotiations go. Now they're all hanky-panky and nice and beautiful. But once the negotiations go, they're going to pull something from their asses, from their sleeves, from their ears, put it on a table and say, no, you need this to do first. That's how they negotiate. Do you think they put all the cards on the table right now? No, this is just, tatonare. In football, you just hit him a little bit down there to the ankle, pack, spit a little bit, poking in the ass, things like this. And then you start to really came up. That's how the negotiations go as well. Unless you are certain that you have the power and you go full force and destroy the other person and say, you give me your property and everything you got. You don't want to, this is what happened to you. And I can do it. And that's it. There's no negotiation. That's imposing your power over the other guy. So, Peskov dismissed reports that Moscow had requested the NATO withdrawal from Eastern Europe, calling them not true. We didn't, and what's not true? Let me tell you what Peskov said. I'm just joking, okay, YouTube. We didn't ask NATO to withdraw from Eastern Europe. We asked NATO to withdraw from all Europe, or Central and Eastern Europe. So yeah, it's inaccurate. We asked only Eastern Europe. We asked Central and Eastern Europe. However, he reiterated Russia's concerns over, and I'm quoting, NATO military infrastructure advancing towards Russia. Well, that's the same. When do you feel threatened? You feel threatened when the guy is 3 miles away? Now, it depends what kind of guns he's got. I mean, he's got only a pistol. He can stay over there until he gets to about 20 yards. To about 25 yards, you start being concerned if he comes with a 9mm. Why? Because, now if he comes with a, let's say, 40 caliber or a 45, no, 25 meters, you say, okay, whoa, hold on. Stay there. All right. Then, so when do you feel threatened? So the Russians should feel threatened in all Europe if they want. They say, well, I feel threatened. You're a mile away from me and you got a pistol, a BB gun, boom, boom, boom. So I feel threatened. I mean, this is a subjective feeling when I feel threatened. I feel threatened by the sun. It's coming. I'm going to melt. Ooh. Now, is it based on reality? No, but nevertheless. On February 17, the Financial Times reported that Russian President Vladimir Putin sought the removal of NATO forces from all former Soviet states. However, US President Donald Trump dismissed the notion, saying, no one is asking. What does this mean? That's his answer. The question is, did he ask? So it's like, you want to, unless you ask me, I'm not going to do it. I don't have to ask. I mean, really. So what if they ask? Will you? That's the question. If he would ask you, would you say yes? No one asking. So that means if he's asking, that means we're going to do it. I want to know if you want to do it. Anyway, they will not do it. All right, my friends, here it is. First, they say the Russians will celebrate in, how do you call it, Red Square. And the other one, the Russians will demand that NATO will pull troops from Eastern Europe, not Central, not Western, okay? Well, both of them are possible, but not probable. The withdrawal of troops is, I would give it 50-50. Possibility 100%. The other one with Victory Day and 24th of February, I give it possibility 100%. Like, oh, it's possible, could happen, but probability, I give it 1%. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.